Hey guys, Moose here. Welcome to another episode of Life is Feudal Forest Village. Hopefully it is fixed. You guys are going to find out with me, because this is probably going to go up regardless. It's great that you can fire the arrow while paused and it still goes. That's kind of funny. But yeah, hopefully the game's fixed. I mean, I've got no idea. I briefly looked at comments and stuff. I was a little disappointed because it seems like a lot of the more recent comments are very positive, which kind of... I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not sure I buy it. But I also don't know how big of a problem fake reviews on Steam are, if they even are. I wasn't really looking at game time. I guess that could have been... that would be kind of hard for them to spoof, I guess, but maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm not really accusing them of using fake reviews. I don't even know if that's possible on Steam, or even a thing that... or not even reviews, really. It's just comments. But it was strange that the game was completely fucked, and they had a lot of positive reviews. That was a little weird, but... I don't know, maybe they fixed it quickly enough that most of the people that tried it didn't really see that state. Music is back. I think I saw a comment that said they fixed roads. It does appear... I don't know, this is probably impossible for you guys to see because it's light green on white, but it does appear to be fixed, so... I'm hoping that part of that also fixed people hauling stuff to their homes. We don't see anyone starving yet, so tentatively I would say, yeah, maybe it's fixed. This is a bad sign. But maybe it's not a problem. Yeah, okay, so it looks like we're good. Tentatively. Emphasis on tentatively. We need wood, actually, and I'm kind of neglecting things, because I kind of expected the game to fail right now. Doesn't look like it's going to, so great, we can actually play again. But... yeah. It looks like they were cutting down trees anyway, but this, you know, more helps, right? Every little bit. Yeah, it's been a crazy while here. I've been kind of going insane. I've been trying... I don't know. I'm like more seriously trying to write, because I think that's kind of my path forward. If I want to do something, I want to make something, that's kind of the next thing that I can actually do. It's something I'm capable of doing. It's not something that I can't handle. So I'm trying to, you know, try my hand at it seriously and make something of it. We'll see how that works out, but so far I don't have anything... like, I've written a bunch of stuff, and I think a lot of it is decent, but it's not like... it's just kind of raw dialogue right now. What am I looking for? There you go. It's just straight up raw dialogue. And the dialogue is fine, like, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not really, like... can't really make a book out of raw dialogue. And there's a lot of, I have a lot of... I wouldn't say concerns, but I have to figure out a lot of stuff about the story and how it's going to flow. Because I don't... so I just finished watching Iron Fist Season 2, which is out on Netflix if you didn't know. I would totally not blame anyone who doesn't watch it, because Iron Fist Season 1 was not great. And I would say the majority of Season 2 is pretty much the same. Basically, and I tweeted this, so you can... if you follow me on Twitter, you already know. But pretty much my opinion about Iron Fist Season 2 is that it was kind of mediocre to bad, then it got good for like 2 or 3 episodes at the very end, and then the very, very, very end was god-awful. Just completely terrible. And it's not entirely unfaithful to the comics, and I think it is actually faithful to the comics. But that doesn't mean they should have done it. And it's kind of... it's trash. It's real... I don't understand how someone who writes for a living would make a decision to do that. And think that it was something that anyone would want to see. But... I don't know. They're getting paid and I'm not, so clearly there's something I don't get. Not spoiling anything, of course. I don't think that counts as spoil. I'm just saying this part was good, this part was bad, and I'm not even saying what part it was, just how far through the season it was. So, you know, watch it if you want. It's not terrible. You could waste your time on much worse things. Like my videos, but... It's worth taking a look if you got Netflix, I guess. If you got Netflix and you got a few hours to kill and you just want to just kind of go through something, it's there. I'm not a huge fan of the characters, I'm not a huge fan of the story. I think there's a lot of flaws with both, and I think there's a lot of aspects of all of it that's not very good, but there's some things that they did that are good, I guess. I just wish, well, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it because I'm going to spoil if I keep going. But there's some things they could have done that would have been really interesting, which probably also would have been like... People would have thought they were insane if they did it, but it would have been interesting. I don't know why this has no builders. Or it's 0 out of 4. Oh, because they're... Yeah, okay. I understand. We don't have enough materials, that's why. There we go. That'll help. Yeah, it's alright. Feel free to give it a look. I wouldn't recommend it, honestly, to a random person, but if you're into comics... pretty big, and you've ran out of all the other ones to watch, that's, you know, it's there. You can watch it. It's not gonna blow your socks off or anything. It's just, you know, it's a comic book show. It's fine. You could argue it might be the worst one there is, but... but that's not that bad. Most of them are really good. Like, Jessica Jones is good, even though it's not totally my thing. Luke Cage is pretty good, though I wasn't... No, I love Season 2. There are parts that, like, I don't like the ending of Season 2, but Season 2 as a whole for Luke Cage was fantastic. I really like the accents, which are Jamaican, if you didn't know. Some really good... I love the sound of that accent. It's very nice. Daredevil, obviously, is great, as always. Punisher... I don't know, Punisher was a little underwhelming, but I think that's just because Punisher's not... It's not possible for... Punisher to live up to that. I think he works better as like a... No, okay, so this is hard to say, because I love the Punisher and I want to see more Punisher stuff, but I think he works better as a character that's brought into other stories. Like a secondary character. He's much better as a secondary character. But if the camera's focused on the Punisher too much, it kind of loses the feel of him, I think. Like, Punisher and the Daredevil, what was it, Season 2 that they had him? It was incredible. Everything about that was spot on, completely perfect. It was amazing. Absolutely loved it. But when you have to do, like, 12 episodes on the Punisher, it starts to run a little bit thin, I think. So I wasn't as into it for that. Because you can't do... Even in the comics, the good Punisher stories, in my opinion, are the ones that are kind of like... They're not like long arcs, they're relatively short. But that's just my opinion. Am I stupid? No, I was gonna say, should I make a castle and start doing research? And I think that's a terrible idea. So I don't have anywhere near the resources necessary to make that happen. I'm kind of surprised this isn't done yet, but I guess clay takes longer to mine than I expected. I honestly think we should just start cutting down trees out here. We're starting to run into issues with wood. Maybe down here is good. But yeah, so I've been writing, and that's been good, but it's a lot harder than I guess I built it up to be in my head. But I think I might be trying to be too much of a perfectionist on the world building and like the overall story. I kind of got sidetracked. What I was gonna say was, there's moments. There was a moment in Iron Fist Season 2 where I've noticed this in shows. I can't point to any specifics, but I've noticed this more and more as I watch more content. There was a moment where they had two characters interacting, and one character was not really putting they were interacting, and one character was basically, I think, trying to convince the other one to do something. And in my opinion, doing that thing was totally out of character for the character. and they just kind of glossed over it. And they just like kind of like, hey, don't think about this too much, we're moving on. This is what's happening, we're moving on. Don't like, it's one of those things where they kind of like try to draw attention away from it, but they have to say it's happening because it's a part of the story. It's necessary for the plot to move forward, but they're just glossing over it. They didn't manufacture a situation in which it made sense. And that's kind of where I get frustrated with stories, is I hate when... Look, you can have there's plot holes that are fine. It's okay to have plot holes sometime, because there's always going to be things that you can't think of. But when they're like that, when it's just like a moment like that, and then they're trying to be like, okay, well, don't think about it. Just don't pay attention to this moment. They just move on. And it's kind of, to me, it's sort of like transparent, like, hey, you guys didn't solve this problem. There's a problem here, and you know about it because you're trying to draw my attention away from it, but you failed. Like, you screwed up. This is a hole in the story. I hate that. I can't stand that. It pulls me out of the story completely. So if I'm gonna write something, if I'm gonna do something, then I am not okay with doing that. Which is not easy. I'm kind of learning that, you know, maybe I should go easier on those guys, because it's not easy to make everything fit perfectly. But it's a fun challenge. It's like a puzzle. It's like being the opposite of a detective. Like, a detective is looking at the output, and, well, mostly the output, in some form of the output, and saying, like, what happened to create this. And if you're writing, it's sort of like you have what you want. You know what you want. You know what you want the story to be about. You know where you want the story to go. But you don't really know necessarily how you get there. That's copper. Almost shot the copper thinking it was a bear. Similar color to a bear, in my defense. But yeah, you don't really know how things happen. So you kind of have to think about, like, okay, well, why would the character do that? You know you want the character to do something, but you're like, well, why would they do that? It makes no sense. It doesn't make sense in context of all the other elements of the story that I've put together for this world to exist. Whatever that might be. Did I not? No, I did didn't I do the stairs in the last episode, and then the last episode was scrapped because the game didn't function? I think I did. That's okay, we're not going to worry about it too much. Finishing the house. Oh, we finished the house. Alright. Well, we have... it'll help our food situation. I don't know if it'll solve it next year, but we'll see what happens. I don't even know if we have an issue, but I think we do. I think we have too many people for the farms that we have here. So I think this is necessary, but, I mean, we'll find out. It's fine. But yeah, so I'm putting a lot of thought into that for the stuff that I'm writing, which may never go anywhere, but it's nice to just... Sometimes it's nice to do something creative even if you don't expect it to ever see the light of day, just so it's something to do, it's a skill to work on. There's value in knowing how to write. There's value in understanding what it takes to make a story and tell a story, and it's worth doing. And depending on what you write about, it can be valuable to kind of understand how you feel about a particular subject, because I probably have a mild form of insomnia because I can't stop myself from thinking, and I never thought about it in terms of being insomnia, and I don't know if I'm even understanding what insomnia is correctly to say something like that, but I think it is. It generally prevents me from being able to sleep because I can't switch off, I can't disengage. I'm pretty much constantly thinking, so even now I took a melatonin tablet, which is the hormone that makes you sleepy, like half an hour ago. And I typically take one on work nights because I need it to get myself to sleep, otherwise I stay up till 3 every night. So really, like, I'm not really on a... I am on a 24-hour clock, but really I'm kind of not. I'm probably more on like a 30-hour, 36-hour clock, somewhere in that range. It's hard for me to fall asleep in a reason. So I'd go to sleep at 3 a.m., then I'd go to sleep at 6 a.m. It'd continuously push back 3 to 6 hours every night. So maybe that's more like a 30-hour clock. 27 to 30-hour clock. But you get the idea. I don't know if that's actually insomnia or not, but the point is, if I'm thinking about something, I don't stop. and I go through a lot of the details in my head. Sometimes I get stuck on one subject, and I just kind of like keep... Is it snowing? It's raining snow. Okay, that's weird, but whatever. It's because it's 0 degrees, so it puts snow on the ground, but it's still raining because it's 0, not 1. Not -1, I mean. Anyway. Point is, I mentally go through a lot of detail and aspects of whatever it is that I'm thinking about. But if you write, if you put something to paper, it's like a different tier of that. So it can be helpful to just write something, because then it forces you to get in there and really think about the story. And it's up to you how detailed and accurate you want to be. How, I don't know what the word would be. How complete you want to make your story or world. And sometimes the right answer to that is that you solve the problem by leaving out information, by not answering every question that comes up. And that's a powerful tool that I think people don't use as much as they should when they write. You should utilize kind of strategic gaps in what you share with the reader to kind of avoid situations where you get plot holes, basically. It's more complicated than that, of course, but sometimes too much is communicated to the reader, where it's not necessary, and if you left it as mysterious, I don't know what, then maybe that helps. Maybe that's a good thing, because then the reader has something to think about. And I think some of the best stories use that. But regardless, right, putting something to paper forces you to think more about it. So depending on what you're writing about, you can actually kind of inform yourself or learn what your beliefs are and how you feel about a particular subject just by, writing a story about it. You could write a story about anything. So that's been fun. I actually meant to talk more about the other thing, because I feel kind of bad talking about the writing, because I have nothing to show for it, so it's kind of just talking. There's nothing to really... There's nothing there to share or anything. Concrete, I mean. But the other thing, and the real reason I've been going insane is I'm very stupid at work, in that while I'm working, I kind of keep thinking about what I can do, not just what I am doing. So I have a lot of projects on my plate right now that I need to finish by the end of the year. It looks like a lot of stuff on paper, but in reality it's actually not that complicated, and most of them could reasonably be finished pretty easily by the end of the year. So I'm not really like overcommitted or anything. But it is work and it does need to get done, and if I just act like, oh, it's no big deal, I'll do it whenever, it's never going to get done. So I have to actually focus on it and do it. But I still keep getting ideas. So my recent idea was like, hey, what if because I didn't think we had this, what if I developed something that looked at all the variables associated with a particular piece of information, and then did correlation analysis and said, hey, these variables correlate to a better outcome. And then we can do, I don't know what you would call it, maybe causal analysis, experimentation? You basically run experiments to confirm that that is actually causing it, rather than just a incidental weirdness with the data. Because if you've taken statistics, and probably a lot of other classes too, but I can't remember where else it comes up, probably in a lot of science classes, but I don't know how much they talk about it. Correlation, which is when two things go up and down together. Basically, like, you could say, I think there was some really weird statistic where, like, it was something completely nonsensical, like the number of school shootings correlates with ice cream sales, or something completely insane that makes no sense. Correlation does not mean causation. Just because two things change similarly does not mean that one causes the other to change. So you actually have to look at it, and some of it you can just do common sense and be like, yeah, of course those aren't related. Sure. Although you should still check, because common sense is often wrong. If it's worth checking into. Some things are not worth looking into, obviously, but in a business environment, if you're looking at yield or something, you really do need to confirm, like, hey, is this variable actually causing the outcome that I'm seeing? And I know at that point I'm out. I don't know anything about that. But I do know about data, I do know about error, I do know about standard deviations, and I know about statistics in general. And it would have been fun, although incredibly difficult, time-consuming, and probably not even possible in Excel, which is the tool that I have available to me, to do that kind of analysis on the number of variables that I would have needed to do it on. But it would have been interesting. I found out apparently they already have something like that, but then the guy that I talked to initially said, no, we don't really have anything like that. But maybe it's in development still, I don't know. But it would have been an interesting puzzle to try and solve, and I might still try and tackle it, but I think it would have been incredibly stupid to try and do that in Excel. And I probably would have. I don't think I would have used that as an opportunity to pick up, like, I don't even know what you'd do it in. Some kind of... I don't know. I know SQL's for querying, and you can do some analysis in SQL, and that's fine. But you wouldn't do this probably in SQL, you'd do something else. So it'd be like a script on the server that would do this analysis. Or something like that. I have no idea what language that would be written in. But it would... You know, it's just using data that's in tables. It's not the most complicated thing from that perspective. The really complicated thing would be... It's very easy to have it systematically go through in a loop and compare every combination of two variables. The part that's more complex is when you say, okay, well now I want you to compare sets of variables to each other. So you'd say, well, if these two variables are this, then what is this? And have some kind of a connection there. That's where it gets weird. And then going and doing different combinations and sets. That's the part where it would get weird, I think. But that was kind of the fun part to me. I was thinking about how I'd handle that. And I have no freaking idea, because I am not a statistician, and I am not currently a programmer, even though I do have a background. I also, this will be the last little, it's time to end the episode, but this will be the last little tidbit. I was talking to one of our, I guess he's a developer, probably you'd call him a developer, for a lot of our applications that we use. And I was asking basically like, hey, what do you want me to do to kind of make this easy for you to integrate later? Because probably what I'm doing, whatever, some of the tools that I'm making, he's likely going to be taking and implementing into the more official non-Excel solution, whatever we have. So I was asking him, like, hey, how do you want me to do this? And, he was giving the rundown, saying, like, hey, I want you to do variables, and, like, hey, don't you... And he was trying to explain to me, don't use global variables, but he didn't know that I had a programming background. So I was like, yeah, no, I get it. I understand I know what global variables are. I know why you don't want me to use them in this context. You want me to use functions, so it's modular, and you can just implement one by one. You don't have to worry about the whole thing in one big chunk. I get it. It makes sense. I totally understand. And when I told him, like, oh, don't worry, I've programmed in C++ before, I understand why you wouldn't want to use a global variable. I get it, and I have a background. He was like, oh shit, why didn't you tell me that before? Now you understand every time I say something is too hard, you know when I'm lying. I'm like, yeah, I've known that forever. I've called you on it before. You don't remember that? Like, you didn't know I had a background? I thought you'd get it from all the things I've said. And apparently he didn't know, so it was funny. Little interactions like that with people where you're like, I didn't know how to see through your bullshit. It's like when someone finds out you speak the same second language that they do. Someone's speaking Spanish in front of you, and you're like, oh yeah, I speak that too. Yeah, I'm fluent. I'm not, but it's the same feeling, I think, when they think you don't know something, but you do. And it's a fun... In that context, it was a fun thing. I can see a lot of contexts where the language part in particular would not be a fun situation, but that's besides the point. Anyway, that is going to do it for today's episode. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. There's always twitch.tv/electronicmoose every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. I guess it's Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. That's not what I meant to pause there, sorry. I'm kind of advancing through time here unintentionally. Yeah. I scrapped Mondays, wasn't working, so we're back to Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. feel free to come by and check out a stream if you'd like. That's 6 to 8 p.m. PST, 9 to 11 p.m. EST. But if you'd prefer just to watch the content here on YouTube, I appreciate that all the same. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.